This is a view of the human brain fresh out of the cadaver, out of the skull. So it's a cadaver brain. And up here, this is rostral. So this would be toward the nose of this individual. And back here, this direction is referred to as caudal. So this would, if the person, back of the head is back here. A synonym for the brain for rostral is anterior. And a synonym for caudal for the brain is posterior. And then you'll notice right here, so those are two of the cardinal directions. And then you notice that the brain can be either up here or down here. We can talk about a piece of brain that's up here or a piece of brain that's further down here. And in the brain, up toward the top of the skull is dorsal, and down toward the jawline, well, that's called ventral. Those directions change when we get to spinal cord, but for the brain, those are the cardinal directions that we need to worry about: rostral, anterior, caudal, posterior, and then up at the top of the brain, dorsal, down here at the bottom of the brain, ventral. Then you'll notice the brain is bilaterally symmetric, so this transverse fissure here separates the brain into right and left hemispheres. Anything that's closer to the midline, sitting right in here, well, that's called medial. And anything that's out toward, away from the midline, say out here, well, that's called lateral. So as we move away from midline, we go from medial to lateral. As we move away from the top of the brain to the bottom of the brain, we go from dorsal to ventral. As we go from the front of the brain to the back of the brain, we go from rostral to caudal. Now we're going to take a look in the next picture at a brain that's been cut right in half. And one of the hemispheres is going to be shown to you. So each of these, this region right here, is called a hemisphere. So in the next picture, we're going to see one of the hemispheres, but we're going to see only the medial surface of that hemisphere. As promised, here we go. So we're at the medial surface, and rostral would be here. So the front of the brain is going to be here. The eyes would be sitting right here if they were still intact. The eyes would be looking out in that direction. Caudal is back here. What's up at the top of the brain here is going to be dorsal. And what's at the bottom of the brain down here is going to be ventral. Okay? And now, a couple of things to notice. Lots and lots of gray matter. You can see it. This, however, is the largest white matter tract in the brain. That's called the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is made up of axons that go from one hemisphere to the next. So axons in the corpus callosum are axons of cells in the right hemisphere that are going to the left, axons from the left hemisphere that are going to the right. The reason I wanted to show you this, however, was to take those embryonic divisions we've seen and tell you about what they look like in an adult. So all of this cerebral cortex, all of this stuff, all of it, it's telencephalic. And if we were to dig into this region in here, we would find some nuclei under here that are also telencephalic. This region, it's covered by a connective tissue sheath, but inside of it is a big hole in the brain, one of the four large holes in the brain called ventricles. And if we dug through this connective tissue, we could actually see the surface of the basal ganglia. So that's all telencephalic. Here, all of this is diencephalon. So the thalamus is up here, is dorsal to the hypothalamus, which is all this down here. So thalamus goes very far into, much more lateral, extends into the lateral part of the brain. So it's much bigger than the hypothalamus, really. But on this midline section, that's what you're looking at, is thalamus and hypothalamus. This, then, is midbrain. So that region right there is midbrain, or mesencephalon. And right behind it, right here, this egg-shaped region, well, that's the pons. Now, midbrain and mesencephalon, they keep their name throughout development. Pons and the overlying cerebellum, which is all this stuff. pons plus cerebellum. Well, that started out life as the metencephalon. And the last part of the brain you need to worry about is right here, and that is the medulla. It started out life as the myelencephalon. So those are the major subdivisions of the human brain that you can see really clearly on this mid-sagittal section, this midline section. And it shows you the 5 major divisions that began during development, early in the first month of gestation.